The entire EMD lube oil system is made up of several subsystems, each having their own pumps and operating requirements. The systems that provide lubrication and cooling for the EMD engine are the scavenging system, the main lubricating oil system, the piston cooling system, and the turbocharger soakback system. Each portion has its own pump to deliver the lubrication to the required components. We'll start by examining the operation of the scavenging system. A large gear-driven positive displacement pump, mounted on the left front corner of the engine, draws oil through a pipe located in the right side of the oil pan to the scavenging strainer located in a compartment in the suction strainer housing, which is located on the right front corner of the engine. This strainer removes large objects from the oil before filtration. From the strainer, the oil flows out the side of the housing to the inlet of the scavenging pump. Here, the oil is pressurized to force it first through the oil filters and then to the oil cooler. The return oil from the cooler re-enters another compartment in the strainer housing. The scavenging oil pump will move approximately 390 gallons per minute at full speed. The main and piston cooling pumps are actually two separate pumps running off a common shaft. The outboard pump is the piston cooling pump. Its function is to supply oil to cool the pistons. Oil is drawn from the return scavenging oil supply through the two companion strainers on the outboard side of the strainer housing to the inlet side of the piston cooling pump. Here, the oil is pressurized to flow to two piston cooling manifolds, one for each side of the engine. Each cylinder has a pipe connected to the manifold that allows some of the oil to be sprayed to the bottom of the piston carrier, to the piston crown, and to the piston ring belt. The carrier allows oil to enter the bottom of the hollow piston crown, where it removes heat from combustion. Some of the oil is used between the piston pin and the carrier bearing to absorb the pressure developed when ignition occurs in the cylinder. At full speed, the piston cooling system circulates approximately 92 gallons of oil per minute. The main lube oil system provides lubrication for most of the rotating parts inside the engine. The inboard pump also draws oil from the strainer housing through the two strainers and pumps it into the engine at approximately 185 gallons per minute at full speed. Directly after the pump are two protective devices. First, a thermostat is used to detect oil that is too hot to safely provide lubrication. Should temperature exceed 270 degrees Fahrenheit, a low oil shutdown will occur. Secondly, a lube oil pressure relief valve prevents pressure above 125 psi from entering the engine. The main lube oil system lubricates the crankshaft and main bearings, the camshafts and valve train components, and the rear gear train and turbocharger bearings. A final filter is used to clean the oil before entering the turbocharger and gear train. A sensing line from the output of the turbo filter delivers pressurized oil to the engine governor. If pressure falls below 30 psi in notch 8 at operating temperature, the governor will initiate a shutdown, and a light will glow on the engine control panel. Before engine startup and after engine shutdown, a separate soakback system is used to lubricate the turbocharger. This consists of an electric motor and pump, a filter, and both check valves and bypass valves. When the fuel prime switch is placed in the prime position, the pump begins to draw oil from the sump through the soakback filter and into the turbocharger. This pump will run for about 30 minutes. Following any shutdown, the pump will again run for about 30 minutes to remove heat to extend the life of the turbocharger bearings. This system should also be qualified following any maintenance or any extended shutdown. This completes our description of the EMD lube oil system components. Discuss this with your instructor. In this segment, we will look at the maintenance requirements of the system. To service the lube oil system, begin by removing the strainer housing lid and opening the two drain valves and secure. Next, remove the scavenging strainer and clean off all gasket material. Then, remove the star-shaped wheel and clamp to provide access to the main and piston cooling strainers. Remove the strainers and clean them with an approved solvent. Reinstall all strainers using new O-rings and gaskets. Make sure the scavenging strainer is seated firmly against the gasket or a suction leak will occur. Apply the star-shaped wheel. Tighten firmly. Next, loosen the nuts on the filter housing cover plate. Carefully open the cover and remove the filter elements. Examine the housing and the elements for signs of metal particles that may be in the oil system. Apply new filters and a new cover gasket. Close the lid and tighten the cover nuts securely. Now go to the soak-back filter and remove the element and dispose in the proper receptacle. Inspect the filter for metal particles and wipe the canister clean. Apply a new element and tighten the bolts securely. The last item in our maintenance is the turbo filter. Loosen the two bolts holding the canister to the filter head. Carefully remove the canister and examine the filter for any signs of metal particles. Replace the seal and install a new filter. Replace the assembly and tighten the two bolts. Do not over-tighten. This completes the maintenance requirements of the EMD lube oil system. Let's take a break to discuss this with your instructor. To diagnose problems with the lube oil system and make any necessary repairs, you must be able to qualify the system. This qualification is made by observing the oil level in the strainer housing. If you recall from our earlier explanation of how the systems work, recall that the scavenging pump will pump oil back into the strainer housing, and the piston cooling and main lube oil pumps will draw it out. This requires a constant oil level flowing in the housing. This level is approximately 2 inches below the screen during operation. If the oil level drops below that level and remains there for more than 45 seconds, the scavenging system is likely defective. A good place to look is the gasket surface or the strainer not drawn down on the gasket. If the oil level rises above the screen and remains there for any length of time, either the two strainers in the housing are plugged or the piston cooling or the main lube oil pumps are not drawing from the housing. If the oil level is constant, the pumps and strainers are operating normally. The soak-back system can be qualified by energizing the fuel pump and removing the number 16 crankcase cover and looking up into the rear gear train to observe oil returning to the oil pan sump. If no oil is detected, then look at the camshafts on the right rear section of the engine. If any oil is seen from the cam bearings or rocker arms, the large check valve in the turbo filter head is leaking and must be repaired. If no oil is seen at either location, the problem is likely in the soakback filter. Remove the oil pan cover nearest the soakback pump. If you hear oil flowing back into the oil pan at this location, the problem is probably a stuck relief valve in the soakback filter head. Remove it and clean any sludge or foreign objects from the seat. If the proper maintenance is performed and the systems are qualified, the EMD lube oil system should perform reliably until the next maintenance period.